If you've only watched The Amazing Digital Circus, you've only seen about half of it. That is, unless you've been completely engrossed in the fandom. Ever since the pilot was released, this crazy fandom has been analyzing every second of the show, creating theories and finding any evidence to promote an idea. As a casual viewer, there's only 9 episodes, but those in the fandom have experienced way more than just that. Now, most sane people watch it like a normal show. Episode drops, they watch it once, maybe think, that was cool, and move on. But if you were in the fandom during the gap between episodes, people were making theories, watching for the most minute of details, and overall just building so much hype for the next episode. I personally found myself way more excited for the releases of episodes 7, 8, and 9 than any of my friends or family that followed the show did. Like, look at this example here. I saw this video about how the random gibberish Kinger types on his keyboard during the fight with Kane in episode 8 is actually the title of the episode. Heh! A lot of people joke about how they would get the TADC fandom to solve their murders. Even as a joke, that statement really just demonstrates how Digital Circus isn't designed to be consumed passively. So here's the first thing most people miss. The Amazing Digital Circus is dense on purpose. It looks chaotic, it looks random, but it's not! Take the background details. In a normal show, the background is just background. In Digital Circus, it's packed with information. Tiny visual jokes, weird inconsistencies, things that don't just add up. You don't notice them on a first watch, but once you do, you realize they're not accidents. Take the foreshadowing of red and blue throughout the show. It's everywhere! And its significance is irrefutable in later episodes. Same thing with the humor. A lot of the jokes feel like throwaway gags, just quick, absurd moments. But if you really think about these moments, they're usually doing 2 things at once. 1, they're funny, and 2, they're telling you something about the world, the characters, or how unstable everything really is. When Jax becomes the beautiful maid he was meant to be, it not only evokes humor in viewers, but also symbolizes that he only wants to be seen with a masculine facade, and looking weak to others makes him lose his sense of power. Even the dialogue works like this. Characters will say something that sounds like nonsense or just part of the chaos, but later you realize it was hinting at something bigger. The show doesn't stop to explain itself, it just drops the clue and moves on. Like Kinger says in episode 5, blue's my favorite color, it being closest to black and all. And that's basically him saying he wants an exit, since the blue button in episode 7 was the exit button. You see what I mean when I say this fandom's crazy? And that's the key difference. If you watch it once, casually, you get the surface. The colors, the energy, the weirdness. But underneath that, there's structure. There are patterns. There are hints. And once you realize that, you start looking outside the episodes too. But this is where it starts to go beyond just the show itself, because with The Amazing Digital Circus, the story doesn't stop when the episode ends. If you're not following what Gooseworks is saying outside the episodes, you're totally missing context. Not because they're explaining everything, but because they're adding texture to it. And what's interesting is the tone. Inside the show, everything feels chaotic, exaggerated, and almost cartoonishly unstable. But outside the show, the tone can shift. Sometimes more grounded, sometimes darker, sometimes just different. This is the part most casual viewers never see. They watch the episode, they enjoy it, and then they move on. But the people who are really into it are tracking everything around it too. Because the story isn't confined to the episodes. And once all of that starts to build, that's where the fandom comes in. The scary fandom. In a way, the Digital Circus is the new Gravity Falls. The only other time I've seen a fandom this dedicated to a show would be in the cryptogram-ridden era of the airing of Gravity Falls. That was a mouthful. Like Gravity Falls, the real experience happens between episodes. The puzzle solving, the frame-by-frame analysis, the collective interpretation. Both shows had so many community discoveries, theories, and shared speculation between episodes. Nobody I know loves Digital Circus or Gravity Falls more than me, and that's simply because they weren't there. These 2 masterpieces are the embodiment of you had to be there for it. Chances are we don't realize just how lucky we are. At any other time in history, nobody else would experience these gifts that we have. The theories and the hype seem relatively unimportant at a first glance, but at this moment, we are living in the nostalgia we are going to look back upon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but ever since the release of the show, I've been pushing everyone I know to watch it. In fact, my brother and I finally got our dad to binge the show, but the results were unsatisfactory. I think the biggest thing was that after I watched the episode 6, I was like in shock with Jax's crash out. I mean, it really stuck with me. Then the endings of episode 7 and 8. I was one of the people that went, wait, that's it! And I guess this kind of feeling that you get isn't as impactful when you know that there's just another episode after. Also found a lot of my friends talking about Kane's death and not really understanding what happened. I had to explain to them that Kinger accidentally deleted Kane, and I talked about the other AI influencing the code on Kinger's computer and stuff. That really got me thinking about this. If you're not directly analyzing the show all the time, it's hard to understand what's really happening sometimes. And that, well, it just makes the experience slightly worse. But, like, heck, my dad didn't even realize Kane was deleted after he watched the episode. For these casual viewers, the digital circus is just episodes. For them, there's no anticipation, no theory building, no emotional investment build-up. The Amazing Digital Circus isn't just a show, it's an event-driven, community-amplified experience. It's not meant to be binged, it's meant to be obsessed over. Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe, or I'll